My name is James PFP. This is the Banjocast. I don't have any music cued, but I'm going to be talking to you right off the bat. This is the Banjocast, pitchforks and flaming torches. See if I can just spit that out without tripping over my own tongue. I'm trying to get a cup of coffee here before I get into the Banjocast this evening. It's still early enough I could probably use my banjo, which is what I'm thinking. But hey, what I'm really doing here is trying to talk to Hilljack, who I think I might manage to catch before too late tonight. Hey Hilljack, this is an excellent discussion we're having in comments regarding the place where natural law coincides with secular law. And this is why I wonder whether or not the Romans had it right, and that's what the founding fathers were going after. Because the natural conditions of the time, which formed the early Roman Republic, were such that they couldn't, the lares were so diverse, they could not possibly insist on having it come down from, like a, how to put it, from the monarchy in the center of their city-state that they'd formed. The Etruscans, I mean. The Etruscans had a problem with this monarchy. So the Roman Republic gets its story of its birth from there. Whether or not Nemo ever existed. But Nemo is what it goes back to. Is it Nemo was the king of Rome? Is it Nemo, or did I get that wrong? It wasn't the king of, it was the king who preceded the Roman Empire, or the Roman Republic. Anyway, I got a cup of coffee tonight, because it's like Fives Day. Fives Day being what it is. I also had a quick look online today because I noticed that there have been a couple of deaths that I wanted to talk about. One I noticed from a week ago. I only noticed it today. Astronaut John Young. John Young, hell of a case study for a bunch of reasons, but I think, excuse me, I think the thing that really stands out about John Young is this. The second part of it basically is Wikipedia summary. Kind of touches on all the points which I would have considered probably a little more important than the rest. The real key one being he's one of 3 people who went back to the moon more than once. So astronaut John Young passed away last week. Who was the one who went before him? Oh yeah, Bruce McCandless. Bruce, who didn't go to the moon, but who was one of the Capcoms for many of the key missions. He was Capcom on Apollo 11. John Young there was probably Capcom on some of Apollo 11 too, come to think of it. He would have been inside of the rotation at that time, and as I say, he'd already flown to the moon. He flew there twice, and that's why I say he was likely a Capcom. They make a point of saying, astronaut John Young's Capcom today. Apollo. His crew on Apollo 10. So he was there with Gene Cernan. Gene Cernan was another one who went there twice. So him and Gene went back together, if that's right. Backup commander on 13. Commander on 16. Backup commander for Cernan on 17. So he was there on 16. Yeah. He landed on 16. Also worked on the shuttle program. Died 1 week ago. Or one square week ago. Who's the other one? We were talking last night about a bishop I know locally who who schismed with the Anglican Church in Canada, and with the worldwide Anglican Church. They formed their own separate organization within the worldwide movement, and it's parallel to the Anglican Church in Canada and the Episcopalian Church in the United States. So I'll read this for you. Charles Hurt Murphy III died on the 8th January, was an American bishop. He was a missionary. He was the missionary bishop. Bishop Ordinary. Bishop Ordinary means he was a bishop to the armed forces, the top bishop for the armed forces chaplaincy. Chairman of the Anglican Mission in the Americas. Former missionary wing of the Anglican Church in Rwanda in the United States and Canada since its origin in 2000. He was married for more than 40 years and 3 adult daughters. Came from a family of priests, Episcopalian, being the son, brother, and brother-in-law of priests. So their entire family and their family fortune is tied up with the church. Let's be honest with that. They don't actually own any of the property that they're managing, but they manage a hell of a lot of property. That's correct. Murphy was born in Decatur, Alabama. Graduated from the University of Alabama in Birmingham. He afterward moved to Trinity College in Bristol, England, where he studied theology under J.I. Packer. Completed theology training University of the South. Died in Litchfield Plantation, Pawleys Island, South Carolina. Served several congregations in the U.S. until being called to serve as rector of All Saints Church in Pawleys Island, South Carolina, 82, where he'd stay for more than 20 years. Traditionalist Episcopalian, which we would call here either High Church, sometimes Anglo-Catholic. Hey, Hilljack, welcome. Glad to see you. Glad that we're having a discussion about natural law and commentary. That's why I think that's basically in a nutshell why I think the only secular connection. I don't think it necessarily argues with natural law to organize your government like that. I don't necessarily think because if it depends how you look at natural law. Where is your authority for natural law? The lares was what the Romans had to deal with when it came to natural law. The lares, the ones which are the most mysterious to our understanding. Or at least in terms of what the educated would say, if you look up in books that have been written about it, it seems that they don't really know what to say about it. I think we do know what to say about it. That's the root of natural law at the time. A traditionalist Episcopalian opposed more liberal tendencies in Anglicanism in North America. He convened and chaired the First Promise movement in 1997, which issued the document The First Promise, which declared the authority of the Episcopal Church to be fundamentally impaired because it no longer upheld the truth of the gospel. Citation needed. That's a very good point. There's a citation needed there. The truth of the gospel is what? That they don't uphold. I don't think the truth of the gospel is actually the issue. I think it's the truth of the traditionalist form, and it's not what the gospel. To say that it's the same as the gospel is foolish. If you try to say it's the truth of the gospel and then you spend the rest of the time arguing what about what the Old Testament says, that's not the gospel. The First Promise movement is the origin of the formation of the AMIA in 2000. It's the mission of the Anglican Church of Rwanda in the United States and Canada. The AMIA was a founding member of the Common Cause Partnership in June 2004 among 6 traditionalist Anglican organizations, also known as dioceses. Founding member of the Anglican Church in North America in 2009, changing his status to ministry partner in 2010. In December 2011, the AMIA split from the Anglican Communion in North America and lost its status with the Anglican Church of Rwanda. After temporary affiliation with the Anglican Church of Congo, AMIA was revamped as a Society of Missionary and Apostolic Works in 2012. Murphy retired 2013 and was replaced by Bishop Philip Jones. And yeah, he died of brain cancer about a week ago. A week by my reckoning, 5 days ago. I'm not celebrating his death. I'm only commenting on the fact that this is another one of a traditionalist wing, which I'm aware of. I don't know about this particular person, but he's the guy who was the top of the chain, so to speak. He was the top of the chain, but then passed it over some time ago, and now he's no longer a going concern. So, Chuck, I'd say via Khan, but hey, I don't know. That's the two things there. What was I looking at before I got in here? Oh, right. Let me see if I can get this up. The Lares. The Lares got me. The Lares is the one that's not easy to find much on. Not government. Not beliefs. But that one. I started looking up this particular idea, what the Lares were, over a decade ago. Over a decade. It's almost a quarter of a secular age ago. It's getting close to it. They were guardian deities in ancient Roman religion, according to Wikipedia, which I don't necessarily trust. Their origin is uncertain. They may have been hero ancestors. I don't think they're necessarily ancestors, is the point. Guardians of the hearth, fields, boundaries, or fruitfulness, or an amalgamation of all these. Here's an example of a Lar holding up a cornucopia from Accitania, now Laura del Rio, in Roman Spain, 1st century AD. Lares were believed to observe, protect, and influence all that happened within the boundaries of their location or function, which is why I say they're household gods. The idea being that they end at where your household ends. The statues of domestic Lares were placed at the table during family meals. Their presence, cult, and blessing seem to have been required at all important family events. Roman writers sometimes identify or conflate them with ancestor deities, domestic panates, and the hearth. Because of these associations, Lares are sometimes categorized as household gods, but some had a much broader domains. Roadways, seaways, agriculture, livestock, towns, cities, the state, and the military were all under protection of their particular Lar or Lares. One or many. Those who protected local neighborhoods, Vici, Vini Vidi Vici, were housed in the crossroads shrines, Compitales, which served as the focus for the religious, social, and political life of their local, overwhelmingly plebeian communities. So if we're going to talk about natural law, I think we might want to talk about these two, which is entirely the issue with secular order in Rome. Why it would be that they didn't have a state religion per se, but the Roman senators or Roman people that were participating in the political sphere felt compelled to make public show of the way that they were indeed paying attention to what was expected of them culturally. It wasn't forced on them by the government. They would do so because they wanted the respect of the population. Cult officials included freedmen and slaves otherwise excluded by status or property qualification from most administrative and religious offices. Bingo. Compared to Rome's major deities, Lares had a limited scope and potency, but archaeologically and literary evidence attests to their central role in Roman identity. Roman identity without a capital I there, but that's interesting. And religious life. By analogy, a homeward bound Roman would be described as returning ad larum, to the Lar. Despite official bans on non-Christian cults from the late 4th century onwards, unofficial cults to Lares persisted until at least the early 5th century AD. It's an interesting read. I've got to find more books on the topic. I've been having a good time looking for more information on this particular one. Ancient Greek and Roman authors offer heroes and daemones as a translation of Lares in various places. It's pretty neat, hey? Weinstock proposes a more ancient equivalence of Lar to Greek hero based on his gloss of a 4th century BC Latin dedication to a Roman ancestor hero, Aeneas, as Lare, or Lar. No physical Lar images survive from before the late Republican era, but literary references suggest the cult could be offered to a single Lar and sometimes many more. Case of obscure Lares, Grundulus, perhaps 30. By the early imperial era, they become paired divinities, probably through the influence of Greek religion, in particular the heroic twin Dioscuri with the iconography of Rome's semi-divine founder twins Romulus and Remus. Lares are represented as two small, youthful, lively male figures clad in short, rustic, girded tunics made of dog skin, according to Plutarch. I've actually read that myself. That's why I think Plutarch's the reason why I think the Etruscans had links with Lacedaemonia or the Spartans. Yes. Basically comes down to household gods is the easy way of explaining it, but it's bigger than households too. Your household, depending on who your household was, but you have access to the cultural material lares. You could think of that as natural law, but to go back to the comment which got me here. This is the second last one. Compare and contrast natural law with the Etruscan Gorgon, and then there's a link to, I'll read this one out. I use only a single line from it. Long after assimilation of the Etruscans, Seneca the Younger said, the difference between the Romans and Etruscans was this. Whereas we believe lightning to be released as a result of the collision of clouds, they believe the clouds collide so as to release lightning. If you get my meaning, they look at it the other way around. For as they attribute all to deity, they are led to believe not that things have a meaning insofar as they occur, but rather that they occur because there must be a meaning. Which is a very, very key point. But let's go back to the Etruscan Gorgon for a minute. Historical Etruscans had achieved a state system, says this summary article, with remnants of the chiefdom and tribal forms. In this, they were different from the surrounding Italics, who had chiefs and tribes. Rome was, in a sense, the first Italian state, but it began as an Etruscan one. They believed the Etruscan government style changed from total monarchy to oligarchic republic, as the Roman Republic in the 6th century BCE, before Common Era. Though it's important to note this did not happen to all the city-states. The government was viewed as being a central authority, ruling over all tribal and clan organizations. Retained the power of life and death. In fact, the Gorgon, ancient symbol of that power, appears as a motif in Etruscan decoration. The adherents to state power were united by a common religion. Political unity in Etruscan society was the city-state, which was probably the referent of methlum, or district. Again, compare it to Muni. The methlum would be like a combination of several Muni. Etruscan texts name quite a number of magistrates, without as much of a hint as to their function. The Campthi, the Parnec, the Perth, the Temera, the Maxtrev, and so on. The people were the Mech. What was the other one? Etruscan system of belief was immanent polytheism, in the sense that it was in the here and now polytheism. That is, all visible phenomena were considered to be manifestations of divine power, and that power was embodied in deities who acted continually on the world but could be dissuaded or persuaded by mortal men. And then the little piece that I quoted was from immediately after. So the Etruscans, if you ask me, believe in practically the same thing as natural law. Practically. But right after, around the Mun or Muni, the tombs were the Man or Mani, or Latin manes, or souls of the ancestors. So in ancient Rome, there was a specific cultural value placed on showing dedication to one's ancestors outside of your household. You'd go to the Moon or the Muni to do that. You literally go and visit them at their tomb or at their grave marker or at their monument, because that's where their spirit is currently residing, or their soul. Three layers of deities are portrayed in Etruscan art. One appears to be lesser divinities of an indigenous origin, Catha or Usul, the sun, Tivir, the moon, Selvan, civil god, Turan, the goddess of love, Laran, god of war. Funny, Laran uses the same root as Lares, right? So, Linth, goddess of death, Maris, Thalna, and Terms, and the god Fuf'uns. The name is related in some unknown way to the city of Populonia and the populus Romanus. Ruling over them were higher deities that seem to reflect the Indo-European system. Tin or Tinya, the sky, Uni and his wife Juno, and Sel, the earth goddess. As a third layer, the Greek gods were adopted by Etruscan system during the Etruscan orientalizing period of immediately before the period of Rome. Which is why I say maybe they had a little influx from Sparta. Or from the precursor Spartans, the Lacedaemonians. Example are Artemi, Menvra, sounds like Minerva, looks a lot like Minerva, equivalent of Athena, and Pachia, Bacchus, Latin equivalent of Dionysius, and over time the primary trinity became Tinia, Uni, and Minerva. Romans kept the ashes of ancestors in special homes too, yes. Which is why you don't find many Roman graveyards. You don't find many now, but if you know where to look for them. Roman graveyards were also destroyed en masse by Christians afterward because of all the various pagan art and things which were on them. So many Roman graveyards we won't find because they've been removed, but they very certainly existed outside the home as well. The Etruscans believed the religion had been revealed to them by seers. That I believe. One male, one female. That intimate contact with divinity. Lots of reading, and that's only the beginning of that is only the beginning, the tip of that iceberg, because Wikipedia. But I remember the first time I started reading some of those Wikipedia articles years ago, and they haven't changed that much since, because there isn't much change going to happen to them. The interesting thing was the link between Muni, Manes, and Lares. Muni being, I think I said in one of the comments, that's the root for the word municipal. That's still a going understanding. If you want to talk natural law, look at this word and tell me where it comes from. If there's a nativist understanding, it comes from that word municipal, I think. Or it tends to come from sources like that word. If you feel that you have a connection to the land that you're on because of those who've preceded you or the blood they spilt on it, municipal. A friend of mine once said, "Geez, Jim, you're pretty good with etymology." And I was like, "Gee, thanks." I didn't need Google to tell me the etymology of municipal. He wasn't damning with faint praise at the time. I actually got to look that up now. Etymology. Municipal. I was watching some things earlier tonight. I can't rebroadcast. Borrowing from French municipal, Latin municipalis, or belonging to a citizen or free town. Municipeps, the citizen and inhabitant of a free town. From munus, duty, and capio, to take. takes duty, or the sacrifice given the duty. There's a civic duty, social contract. Another way of putting it, social contract. Hmm. I'm actually surprised that it didn't get back to the. It didn't get to Mooney. It went to Munis instead. Plural munia. Service performed for the community duty work. Also public spectacle paid for by the magistrate. Gladiatorial entertainment or gift. From Old Latin munus, service, duty, or burden. It isn't from Old Latin. From Etruscan, muni. Cognates in related sense, divan list Sanskrits, many, revenge. Avestan, mani, punishment or castigation. Old Persian, yua, mani, power of revenge. Middle Welsh, tramway or tremyenu. I got no idea if that's correct. It's pronounced correct pronunciation there for Welsh. To cross or pass. Old Irish, moin or moin, value or treasure. Welsh, min, value. Lithuanian, manus, exchange. Old Church Slavonic, mina, exchange, substitution. Gothic, Gemains. Old High German, Gemeins, common. Like precursor to mark. What's the etymology of shithole? Good question. It's very, 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 very recent. Very, very recent. It has nothing to do with the nationality involved. That's for goddamn sure, let alone the race. Considering how ancient the technology, I mean. Is recent. It's recent to use the comparison flippantly. Old High German, Gemeins. A municeps is one who takes an obligation. Communis, one who partakes in the duties. So, as I say, you can see the difference between Etruscan, where they say it's the actual grave where the soul resides, and then in the Roman sense, there's a duty that you pay to the actual community, which is around where the souls reside, living or dead. A bronze lyre holding a right and a patera. Lyres belong within the bounded physical domain under their protection, seem to have been innumerable as the places they protected. Some appear to have overlapping functions and changes of name. Some have no particular or descriptive name. For example, those invoked along with Mars in the Carmen Arvale are simply lasses, an archaic form of Lyres, whose divine functions must be inferred from wording and context of the Carmen itself. Likewise, those invoked along with other deities by the consul Publius Decius Mus, ridiculous Mus, with an act of devotion before his death in battle are simply lares. Titles and domains given below cannot therefore be taken as exhaustive or definitive. Lares Augusti, the Lares of Augustus himself. The August Lares, given public cult for the 1st of August, identified with the inaugural day of imperial Roman magistracies and with Augustus himself. Official cult to the Lares Augusti continued from their institution through to the 4th century AD. Identified with the Lares Compitalici and Lares Praestites of Augustan religious reform. Jesus Christ. Lares Domestici, Lares Familiares, Lares of the family, those with the domestici, household. So that's, when you say household guards, that's really how little we're talking about. Lares Militariaris, Lares Patri, the Lares of one's fathers, probably equivalent to D Patri, deified ancestors, which are the ones at the Mooney. Lares Praestites, Lares of the cities of Rome, later of the Roman state or community, literally the Lares who stand before as guardians or watchmen. So there's not only the praetors, there's not only the soldiery, there's also the gods who they kind of, the gods who they worship in their stead. Housed in the state Oregia, near the temple Vesta, with whose worship and Sacred Heart they were associated, seemed to have protected Rome from malicious or destructive fire when they felt like it. May function as a neighborhood Lares of Octavian, later Emperor Augustus, who owned a house between the temple of Vesta and the Regia. Augustus later gave his household care of its Lares to the Vestals, the Vestal Virgins. This donation reinforced the religious bonds between the Lares of his household, his neighborhood, and the state. His Compitalia reforms extended this identification to every neighborhood Lares shrine. However, Lares Praestites and the Lares Compitales, renamed as Lares Augusti, should probably not be considered identical. Local festivals were held at the same Compitalia shrines, but at different times. Lares Viales of the roads, Lares Ruales of the fields, Rurales, and Privati. Lares Privati, nothing at all spoken of those. The little mythology that belongs to the Lares seems inventive and poetic. I don't have any problem believing that either. Festus identifies them as gods of the underworld, Dei Inferi and Ferai. In the 4th century AD, the Christian polemicist Arnobius claimed among others Varro as his source, describes them as once human spirits of the underworld, therefore ancestral, manes ghosts, but also as gods of the air or the upper world. He also, perhaps uniquely in the literature, but still claiming Varro's authority, categorizes them with the frightful larvae. Ubiquity of Lares seems to have offered considerable restraints in Christian participation in Roman public life. The ubiquity of Lares seems to have offered considerable restraints on Christian participation in Roman public life. In the 3rd century, Tertullian remarks the inevitable presence of Lares in pagan households as good reason to forbid marriage between pagan men and Christian women. The latter would be tormented by the vapor of incense each time the demons are honored, each solemn festivity in honor of the emperors, each beginning of the year, each beginning of the month. Yet their type proved remarkably persistent. In the early 5th century AD, after official suppression of the non-Christian cults, Rutilius Namatinus could write of the famine-stricken district whose inhabitants had no choice but abandon their lares, thus to desert their rat-infested house. The larvae, the lemures, were shades or spirits of restless or malignant dead in Roman mythology, probably cognate with the extended sense of larvae from Latin larva or mask, sort of like zombies. Lemure is the more common literary term, but even this is rare. It's used by Augustan poets Horace and Ovid later in his Fasti 6-book calendar poem on Roman holidays. Ovid. To the PIE stem lem, which also appears in the name of the Greek monster Lamia. Oh, it's so interesting. It's totally my most favorite junction point. I recognize that the Roman Republic had a major reboot with this American system is why. It seems obvious to me, not because of the lares, but because the way that secular become important. Too many competing. It was necessary for a type of polytheistic, how to put it, concession, somehow or another. So the separation of church and state is essentially what it is. And how do you do it? You radically decentralize the necessity of spiritual matters. You make it private, essentially. What am I looking for? Have I been going on for half an hour here? What? Seems like longer. I dropped a bunch of frames too, did I? What possibly could have held me up? Oh, I remember something. Speaking of funny things. Got to discussing last night with Nun, the contents of this particular piece of fiction. So I'm going to read this over the next little while. And I'm not going to read it all in one long go because it's just too much. And if you like what you hear, perhaps you want to get yourself a copy of the book too. The name of the book is Cat's Cradle. It's written by Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt was a prisoner of war during the Second World War. After the war, he wrote a lot of books. Many of them were quite entertaining. This one was incredible. It was released in 1963, Cat's Cradle. The Day the World Ended, Chapter 1. Call me Jonah. My parents did, or nearly did. They called me John. Jonah, John. If I'd been a Sam, I would have been a Jonah still. Not because I have been unlucky for others, but because somebody or something has compelled me to be certain places at certain times, without fail. Conveyances and motives, both conventional and bizarre, have been provided. And, according to plan, at each appointed second, at each appointed place, this Jonah was there. Listen. When I was a younger man, 2 wives ago, 250,000 cigarettes ago, 3,000 quarts of booze ago. When I was a much younger man, I began to collect material for a book that was to be called The Day the World Ended. The book was to be factual. The book was to be an account of what important Americans had done on the day when the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan. It was to be a Christian book. I was a Christian then. I am a Bokanonist now. I would have been a Bokanonist then, if there had been anyone to teach me the bittersweet lies of Bokanon. But Bokanonism was unknown beyond the gravel beaches and coral knives that ring this little island in the Caribbean Sea, the Republic of San Lorenzo. We Bokanonists believe that humanity is organized into teams that do God's will without ever discovering what they're doing. Such a team is called a karas by Bokanon, and the instrument, the kan-kan, which brought me into my own particular karas, was the book I never finished. The book that was to be called The Day the World Ended. Nice, very nice. Chapter 2. If you ever find your life tangled up with someone else's life, and for no very logical reason, writes Bokanon, that person may be a member of your karas. At another point in his books of Bokanon, he tells us, man created the checkerboard, God created the karas. By that he means that the karas ignores national, institutional, occupational, familial, and class boundaries. It is as free-form as an amoeba. In his 53rd Calypso, Bokanon invites us to sing along with him. Oh, a sleeping drunkard up in Central Park, and a lion hunter in the jungle dark, and a Chinese dentist and the British Queen all fit together in the same machine. Nice, very nice. Nice, very nice. Nice, very nice. So many different people in the same device. Folly, Chapter 3. Nowhere does Bokanon warn against a person's trying to discover the limits of his karas and the nature of the work God Almighty has had it do. Bokanon simply observes that such investigations are bound to be incomplete. In the autobiographical section of the books of Bokanon, he writes a parable on the folly of pretending to discover, to understand. I once knew an Episcopalian lady in Newport, Rhode Island, who asked me to design and build a doghouse for her Great Dane. Lady claimed to understand God and his ways of working perfectly. She could not understand why anyone should be puzzled about what had been or what was going to be. And yet, when I showed her the blueprint of the doghouse I proposed to build, she said to me, I'm sorry, but I never could read one of those things. Give it to your husband or your minister to pass on to God, I said. Or when God finds him in it, I'm sure he'll explain this doghouse of mine in a way that even you could understand. She fired me. I should never forget her. She believed that God liked people in sailboats much better than he liked people in motorboats. She could not bear to look at a worm. When she saw a worm, she screamed. She was a fool, and so am I. And so is anyone who thinks he sees what God is doing, writes Bokanon. A tentative tangling of tendrils, chapter 4. Be that as it may, I intend in this book to include as many members of my karas as possible, and I mean to examine all strong hints as to what on earth we, collectively, have been up to. I do not intend that this book be a tract or be on behalf of Bokanonism. I should like to offer a Bokanonist warning about it, however. The first sentence in the books of Bokanon is this: all of the true things I'm about to tell you are shameless lies. My Bokanonist warning is this: anyone unable to understand how a useful religion can be founded on lies will not understand this book either. So be it. About my karas, then. It surely includes the 3 children of Dr. Felix Honecker, one of the so-called fathers of the first atomic bomb. Dr. Honecker himself was no doubt a member of my karas, though he was dead before my sunukas, the tendrils of my life, began to tangle with those of his children. The first of his hairs to be touched by my sunukas was Newton Honecker, the youngest of his 3 children. the younger of his two sons. I learned from the publication of my fraternity, the Delta Upsilon Quarterly, that Newton Honecker, son of the Nobel Prize physicist Felix Honecker, had been pledged to my chapter, the Cornell chapter. So I wrote this letter to Newt. Dear Mr. Honecker, or should I say, Dear Brother Honecker, I am a Cornell DU now making my living as a freelance writer. Cornell DU Delta Upsilon. Now making my living as a freelance writer. I am gathering material for a book relating the first atomic bomb, relating to. Its contents will be limited to the events that took place on August 6, 1945, the day the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. Since your late father is generally recognized as having been one of the chief creators of the bomb, I would very much appreciate any anecdotes you might care to give me of your life in your father's house on the day the bomb was dropped. I'm sorry to say that I don't know as much about your illustrious family as I should, and so I don't know whether you have brothers or sisters. If you do have brothers or sisters, I should very much like to have their addresses so that I can send similar requests to them. I realize that when you were very young when the bomb was dropped, which is all to the good. My book is going to emphasize the human rather than the technical side of the bomb. So recollections on the day through the eyes of a baby, if you pardon the expression, would fit in perfectly. You don't have to worry about the style and form. Leave all that to me. Just give me the bare bones of your story. I will, of course, submit the final version to you for your approval prior to publication. Fraternally yours, Letter from a Pre-Med, Chapter 5. To which Newt replied, I am sorry to be so long in answering your letter. That sounds like a very interesting book you are doing. I was so young when the bomb was dropped, I don't think I'm going to be of much help. You really should ask my brother and sister, who are both older than I am. My sister is Mrs. Harrison C. Connors, 4918 North Meriden Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. That is my home address, too, now. I think she'll be glad to help you. Nobody knows where my brother Frank is. He disappeared right after my father's funeral 2 years ago, and nobody has heard from him since. For all we know, he may be dead now. I was only 6 years old when they dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima, so anything I remember about that day, other people have helped me remember. I remember that I was playing on the living room carpet outside my father's study door in Ilium, New York. The door was open, and I could see my father. He was wearing pajamas and a bathrobe. He was smoking a cigar. He was playing with a loop of string. Father was staying home from the laboratory in his pajamas all day that day. He stayed home whenever he wanted to. Father, as you probably know, spent practically his whole professional life working for the research laboratory of the General Forge and Foundry Company in Ilium. When the Manhattan Project came along, the bomb project, Father wouldn't leave Ilium to work on it. He said he wouldn't work on it at all unless they let him work where he wanted to work. A lot of the time that meant at home. The only place he liked to go outside of Ilium was our cottage in Cape Cod. Cape Cod was where he died. He died on a Christmas Eve. Probably know that too. Anyway, I was playing on the carpet outside the study on the day of the bomb. My sister Angela tells me I used to play with the little toy trucks for hours, making motor sounds going Burton, Burton, Burton all the time. So I guess I was going Burton, Burton, Burton on the day of the bomb, and Father was in his study playing with a loop of string. It so happens I know where the string he was playing with came from. Maybe you can use it somewhere in your book. Father took the string from around the manuscript of the novel that a man in prison had sent to him. The novel was about the end of the world in the year 2000, and the name of the book was 2000 AD. It told about how mad scientists made a terrific bomb that wiped out the whole world. There was a big sex orgy where everybody knew that the world was going to end. And then Jesus Christ himself appeared 10 seconds before the bomb went off. The name of the author was Marvin Sharp Holderness. He told Father in a covering letter that he was in prison for killing his own brother. He sent the manuscript to Father because he couldn't figure out what kind of explosives to put in the bomb. He thought maybe Father could make suggestions. Don't mean to tell you I read the book when I was 6. We had it around the house for years. My brother Frank made it his personal property on account of all the dirty parts. Frank kept it hidden in what he called his wall safe in the bedroom. Actually, it wasn't a safe, it was just an old stove flue with a tin lid. Frank and I must have read that orgy part 1,000 times when we were kids. We had it for years, and then my sister Angela found it. She read it and said it was nothing but a piece of dirty, rotten filth. She burned it up, and the string with it. She was a mother to Frank and me because our real mother died when I was born. My father never read the book, I'm pretty sure. Don't think he ever read a novel or even a short story in his whole life. And at least not since he was a little boy. Didn't read his mail or magazines or newspapers either. I suppose he read a lot of technical journals, but to tell you the truth, I can't remember my father reading anything. As I say, all he wanted from the manuscript was the string. That was the way he was. Nobody could predict what he was going to be interested in next. On the day of the bomb, it was the string. Have you ever read the speech he made when he accepted the Nobel Prize? This is the whole speech. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you now because I never stopped dawdling like an 8-year-old on a spring morning on his way to school. Anything can make me stop and look and wonder and sometimes learn. I am a very happy man. Thank you. Anyway, Father looked at that loop of string for a while and then his fingers started playing with it. His fingers made the string figure called Cat's Cradle. Don't know where Father learned how to do that. From his father, maybe. His father was a tailor, you know, so there must have been thread and string around all the time when Father was a boy. Making the cat's cradle was the closest I ever saw my father come to playing what anyone else would call a game. He had no use at all for tricks and games and rules that other people made up. In a scrapbook my sister Angela used to keep up, there was a clipping from Time magazine when somebody asked Father what games he played for relaxation. And he said, "Why should I bother with made-up games when there are so many real ones going on?" He must have surprised himself when he made the cat's cradle out of the string. Maybe it reminded him of his own childhood. He all of a sudden came out of his study and did something he'd never done before. He tried to play with me. Not only had he never played with me before, he hardly had ever spoken to me. But he went down on his knees on the carpet next to me and he showed me his teeth and he waved the tangle of string on my face. "See? See? See?" he asked. "Cat's cradle. See the cat's cradle? See where the nice pussycat sleeps? Meow, meow." His pores looked as big as craters on the moon. His ears and nostrils were stuffed with hair. Cigar smoke made him smell like the mouth of hell. So close up, my father was the ugliest thing I'd ever seen. I dream about it all the time. And then he sang. "Rock-a-bye, Catsy, in the treetop," he sang. "When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. If the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. Down will come cradle, Catsy and all." I burst into tears. I jumped up and ran out of the house as fast as I could go. I have to sign off here. It's after 2 in the morning. My roommate just woke up and complained about the noise from the typewriter. I'm going to end the reading here. I'll do a couple chapters every day for the next little while. That's what I think. A little bit of Cat's Cradle. Cat's Cradle there. And did I link the book in the description? No, I didn't. Probably should. Cat's Cradle, in case you've never heard of it before. Book by Kurt Vonnegut. They haven't managed to make a movie out of it and ruin it yet. That's great. I was looking up some of the info on that last night. Actually, it surprised the shit out of me. Totally surprised the shit out of me. Because Leonardo DiCaprio's company's had it for over a decade and they can't get it made. Which kind of tells you they must have screwed it up, don't it? They must have screwed up the script. to not be able to make a book as good as that one. Yeah, I need to do this one now. I gotta switch them over. Speaking of shithole and etymology.
All right, everyone, cue the virtue signaling. So I would just like to say, no, Haiti is totally fine. There's no problems there at all. Evil, bigot, horrible Trump. I just condemn him and deny him so much. Okay, in all seriousness, though, the claim that's being made about what he said that I don't even think has been corroborated, it's like, Haiti is a shitty place to live. Okay. Yeah, he must be a racist for saying that. No, the Democrats have been saying that for the last fucking decade. Oh, there's so much poverty, human trafficking, drug trafficking, systemic violence, political corruption. You know, we should help people. We should take refugees. That's the whole premise. If you're suggesting we need refugees from a country, the suggestion you're making is, hey, that country has been destabilized now, isn't it? Now, if a country is destabilized, if 1 in 10 or some crazy number of the people there are slaves, in the most literal sense, modern slavery is alive and well in Haiti. Several 100,000 slaves in this little tiny area, and more that have been like exported on the human trafficking market to the Middle East especially. Lots of slavery, sex trafficking like prostitution, drug running, making, synthesizing and selling, addiction problems, political corruption, famine, disease. You've got basically every possible problem that you could have in a nation in this little piece of land known as Haiti. Are you honestly going to say that the only reason a person could possibly say, therefore, that it's a shithole is because they're racist? Or could they just possibly actually know something about Haiti? You see, here's the problem. It's just like before, when Trump was like, oh, you know, Haitians are impoverished, and Nigerians, I think he said they lived in huts or something, supposedly, and there was never any corroboration of that either. When he said that, you are trying to tell me that a Manhattan business Democrat billionaire with a
Sorry to cut this guy off in the middle. It sticks. I really like your argument, and I'm not gonna disagree with most of anything he's gonna say in this video. But I'm thinking here about Cat's Cradle, and the thing that I really think bugs the shit out of me about it. It's not the content of the book, it's when it was released. It was published in 1963.
Master's degree is totally incompetent on foreign affairs. He knows nothing about other nations other than the first world. Okay, that boggles the mind because he's done business.
A book about the end of the world is published in 1963.
In technical third world nations, like he's got a skyscraper, I think, in India too. He's got developments all over the
day the world ended.
He's literally makes money by knowing about other countries' financial situations and talking to people in other countries. You're sitting there criticizing him for talking to too many foreigners. Oh, he talked to too many Russians. Must be collusion. Meanwhile, he supposedly knows absolutely nothing about these states. I don't think so. So I don't even believe the report. I don't even think he said this. But if he did, so be it. It's not a lie. Haiti's a terrible place. It's full of misery and poverty. Most of the people...
Sorry to cut him off again. The University of Chicago awarded Vonnegut his master's degree in anthropology for Cat's Cradle. The book got him a degree in anthropology. Smart fucking book. I mean, in a time when you might expect a degree to mean something. More than it does now. And every man named John, calling himself Jonah. The flag of San Lorenzo. There's nothing interesting here about the publication, though.
People in Haiti don't have enough to eat. Most of them don't have access to proper medical care. There is widespread, problematic famine and disease and corruption and crime in Haiti. What don't you get about it? Now, if he had said this about, like, Macedonia, he'd also be right. Macedonia, impoverished, underdeveloped.
Haiti is not San Lorenzo, in case you're wondering, but Puerto Rico has a lot of similar features to San Lorenzo.
Of political corruption, low freedom index ranking, as though that matters. Supposedly they think Germany's high on the freedom index, so fuck them, basically. If he had said it about Macedonia, you know, a white nation, he would also be right, and nobody would have had a problem with it. Nobody would be saying, oh, what a racist. Don Lemon comes out to Virtue Signal, says, oh, our president is a racist. Bullshit. You don't know anything about the situation. You don't even know that he said this. Where's the corroboration? Where's the source? What source did this come from? Here's a big problem that I have with unsourced stuff. The First Amendment protects the ability of basically a corporation to simply smear somebody, essentially. And then claim in a court, hey, we don't have to reveal our source, but we've got one. Well, prove it. Well, no, we don't have to reveal our source. You know, it's journalistic privilege. Our journalists don't have to reveal their sources. It's confidential. It's private. You can't know. So essentially, you can smear anyone that you want and just hide behind that screen. How very, very convenient if you want to take down a presidency. You can claim basically anything you want about them.
Good.
No, I don't trust the corporate media to have integrity when it comes to such things, because it wouldn't make sense for them. They're losing money because the president won't give them an interview, scoops them on Twitter, and derides them all day. No shit, they're going to try to make up bullshit about him if they can. They're not going to get caught because there's no actual source. There's no paper trail. There's no electronic trail. If worse comes to worse, they'll have one of their own journalists go to a fucking payphone, make the call with a voice masking program, and say, oh, this is our source. Yeah, we don't know who it is. They didn't give us the name, but they gave us the story. We just reported on it. We don't make the news. We just report it. Perfectly fine.
We don't make the news.
Yeah, Don Lemon should shut the fuck up. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a virtue signaling SOB. And as far as the report, I don't believe it. Nope, absolutely not. Let's say, though, it's correct. Let's say Trump comes out tomorrow and says,
I heard someone there criticizing CNN last night, and they were saying how the mainstream media was throwing their hands up in the air and lighting their hair on fire. But they were talking about Brian Stelter at the time, and I couldn't stop laughing. The thought of Brian Stelter lighting his hair on fire. I think that's probably how Brian Stelter got his job, was lighting his hair on fire. Like the thing that they demanded that he do was to run around pretending the sky was falling, light your hair on fire, and the job is yours. And then he's been hired by them.
I said that. He'll say, well, no, Haiti's a wonderful place. I'm really sorry about that. I didn't know anything about Haiti because I'm an ignorant fuck-up. An ignorant fuck-up with billions of dollars who won the presidency. But, okay, I'm an ignorant fuck-up, a fat slob, a total right-wing bigot. I'm sorry about this. I didn't know anything about Haiti. On second thought, I looked on Wikipedia and determined that Haiti's actually wonderful. I was wrong. It's better than Norway. Now, that's funny. When Democrats were saying after Trump won, hey, I'm going to leave the U.S. because Trump won. Ooh, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be horrible. He's an evil Nazi. You know, Third World War is coming. I need to get out of here. So corrupt. Did any of them say, hey, I'm going to Haiti? Or where did they say they were going to go to? Oh, Canada. That's odd. Australia. The UK. Some of them said Japan, actually. New Zealand. Okay. You do realize that all four countries on top of that list are predominantly white English-speaking nations. That's very funny. So who's obsessed with this concept? Look, Trump didn't mention race at all. He didn't say anything about race. You intoned that. You assumed that he was saying this about Haiti because it's a black nation. Well, no, maybe it's because he's actually got eyes, and he can read news reports. He knows how to read. He's literate. And he understands that Haiti has desperate problems. By the way, Clinton Foundation's there. They're saying, oh, we're going to help people. We're going to help them. Red Cross claims building a bunch of houses that apparently most of them were never built. Now, the Clinton Foundation, when Clinton was involved in Libya went from being a developed and almost first world nation to total collapse. Gets involved in Syria and a developing halfway decent nation, authoritarian, yes, but, you know, stability-wise, halfway decent, has a medical apparatus, has jobs, has marginal wealth in marginally larger numbers of hands than a tin horn regime typically does. The Clinton foreign policy marches in there, destroys it. Now it's sub-third world. Egypt, again, developing, semi-developed, and at least in urban areas, doing fairly well by the standards of the region. Clintonian foreign policy through Obama gets involved, Muslim Brotherhood takes over. intertribal and sectarian conflict breaks out, military law breaks out. I think they lost like a third of their GDP over the course of a couple years. Astronomical. They've just barely begun to get back to where they were before the Muslim Brotherhood fiasco there. Now Haiti. Haiti is already collapsed. It was already sub-third world. Then the earthquake hits. They collapse even further. Clinton gets involved and nothing happens, and now they're even worse off. There are people in Haiti who supplement their diet by taking literally clay and chewing on it. You're trying to tell me that that nation doesn't have absolute massive systemic problems. And by the way, the Democrats are cutting off their nose to spite their face making this argument. They're basically intoning, no, it's not a shithole. Haiti's fine. Okay, then why are we taking refugees from this nation? You don't take refugees from a nation unless it's chronically underdeveloped and has significant problems. The fact is that Haiti has unlivable conditions for a large proportion of the population. Therefore, you're like, oh, well, we need to take refugees. Now, I don't think that. I think we need to invest in their infrastructure and hopefully solve the problem on a somewhat more stable and permanent basis. Simply giving food aid is just going to keep them impoverished because it suppresses all farmers. A farmer can't compete with free. Someone comes in and starts giving people free food. All the people who want to be paid for their food, they would have to work to actually produce it. They're not going to make any money. No one's going to buy it from them. It's not going to happen. Same thing is true with the medical apparatus. We've suppressed that too. You know, so nobody's going to go to a Haitian doctor, someone trained in Haiti, when they can go to the tent set up by the Red Cross and get first world medical care. It's just not going to happen. And so we've actually helped to destroy Haiti more and suppress it and keep it impoverished. Meanwhile, people want to chalk it up to race to note that there are actually problems. And no, taking care of problems requires that you admit that there are problems. Chalking Trump's statement up to he must be a racist, it's the most intellectually dishonest thing so far that I think the legacy media has done on this particular...
This is why I thumbed the video up today.
...statement. And also, WikiLeaks and Veritas came out and said, isn't it funny that this takes over the entire Twitter sphere and everything else in the immediate wake of our revelation about Twitter censorship? Yeah, it is a little bit odd. Maybe they wanted to kill two birds with one stone. But no, I'd side with Trump on this one.
Look at this 4K thumbs up, over 4,000, obviously. 88 thumbs down.
Statement's not correct. I have no... Look, unless I presume him to be bigoted, which doesn't make any sense, I'm not going to assume that this is a bigoted statement to make. It's not. It's simple truth. It's not mentioning race. It has nothing to do with that. Look, people are casting it... They're saying that this statement is corroborated by the fact that he supposedly said other equally uncorroborated bigoted statements several weeks ago. And the only reason that they even took those seriously is because the legacy media for a year now said, oh, Trump is a bigot, Trump is a bigot, he's ignorant, he's so out there, he's a racist, all of his fans are racist, MAGA's a racist term, everything about him is racist. It's a good thing that after tax time, a lot of people will no longer be taking this seriously.
I was laughing to kill myself as I was pouring a cup of tea listening to this today.
Yeah. You can look for them to maybe try to make one last move to sever his candidacy and really stomp him out before tax time. But, you know, word on the street is it won't be effective because his hardened core fan base is about a third, apparently, of the American public. And just think, those polls include people that are apolitical and
the third is larger than a 20%, which 20% you might imagine is doing quite a bit of the work.
Some of them probably approve of him, too. No, Trump's no bigot. And if he made this statement, no, it's true. It's not exactly false now, is it? Do you want to move to Haiti? Hell, you wouldn't even want to move to Venezuela either. If he said it about Venezuela, he'd probably say, oh, he hates Hispanics. No, maybe he's looking at the news about Venezuela, about hyperinflation and widespread poverty to the point where zoo animals are getting slaughtered and eaten. Maybe that's why he's calling it names. It's not because of the people. Maybe he feels sorry for them. I bet he feels sorry for the Haitians for having to deal with the Clinton Foundation. He has to deal with Clinton, too. It's no walk in the park, exactly. She likes to act up and whine. Yeah. It's a really funny story, though. People are acting like it's the end of the world. Oh, our president is a racist. He's a bigot. Again, what proof do you have of this? I don't mean an unsourced quote from an anonymous, source in the White House, supposedly, fed through a media organization that spars with Trump every day. I mean, where's the actual evidence that he is a bigot? I see none. People are saying, I remember like 6 months ago, one of these left-wing pundits was like, oh, we have a tape of Trump saying the N-word. We have reliable reports that this exists. Oh, no, that's funny. Where is it? I thought that it was going to be big news.
How long before this audio clip, Trump saying the N-word, how long before that gets remixed into some piece of art?
News, wow. You know, you definitely want to release that. That would crush his presidency in an instant. So where's this tape that you claimed existed? I wonder why it was never released. Could it be it doesn't exist? It's just a defamation attempt? We're never
If it existed, I'm telling you right now, it'd be remixed and in a popular club tune. We would all know about the fact that it exists faster than the MSM seems to be able to provide it.
Going to hear who the sources are within the White House, because chances are, for most of these stories, there are none. The story's not real. The quote's not real. He never said it. They said Trump has not denied that he said this, like he's going to give you the time of day. If he denies it, is it really going to change things?
Why did they have Jim Acosta ask the question?
Any person who dislikes Trump actually going to believe him? He says, no, I didn't say that about Haiti. No, they're going to say, he's lying. He's lying. The president's a liar too. He's not just a bigot, he's a lying bigot. That's what you're going to say. He's not going to play your game. It's a bunch of bullshit. And I've seen them. They're trying to do this to the alt media too. They tried to do it to me the other day. You know, that's why I don't agree that we should have more Norwegians in the country necessarily. Because I know at least one that I was sparring with that's very, very goofy. But, you know, that's a totally different issue. I'm not even bother talking about that shit. It's literally the same fucking thing. It looks like MAGA populism is kind of the odd man out. It's like they're so terrified of it. It's like they ignore the far right. They ignore maybe the Antifa left. They're going to fixate on you know, lukewarm MAGA populism or marginal monarchist libertarianism, like that's the greatest threat that the nation has ever faced. They're only interested in defaming like Trumpites. It's getting a little bit weird politically, to tell the truth. You know, but who fucking cares? Trump probably never said it.
Styx says it's getting a little bit weird politically. I ask you, look at the picture. This is a reverse, like, freeze framing treatment. I'm being radically egalitarian, sorry. This would make for an interesting breakdown, really.
If he did, he was right anyway, and you know, you'd have to assume that he's racist in order to chalk it up as a racist statement. Haiti's not a race. Haiti is a nation, a failed state with a very weak central government in which foreign groups primarily are the ones exercising power. It doesn't even have self-determination at the moment. It's overrun with problems. Crime, famine, disease, and slavery. Cartel activity. What more needs be said? Would you want to live there? No, and most Haitians don't want to live there either. That's why they want to take refugees from Haiti. Self-fucking-explanatory, isn't it? Bunch of virtue signaling moralist idiots. You probably want Haiti to remain poor so you can continue justifying the Clinton Foundation running drugs from it, probably. That's about all.
He just goes whack, is done. Oh man. You may have noticed a few moments ago I was looking for pieces of music. I think I'll take a chance on this particular gig. A group called the Lemmings Ensemble. Sounds like they're warming up in this track. I'm going to go over here to video cam over for a moment. In the background here in this image you can see the Catholic Basilica from a reverse angle. I'm generally closer to it on a road, down on the road surface when I take pictures of it. I should probably go through some of my pictures of religious architecture in the region. I think I also might take a quick break here.
Jim, you ready? Check, check. Can I get a little of it in the monitor, just a bit? Check. Oh, check. There it is. That's good. Check. You ready? You ready? We are D-Lo. We're going to play a little bit for you.
Wow. For some reason, I'm dropping frames tonight. I'm gonna figure this out. And ain't sending a whole bunch. I think I know what I gotta do. I'm gonna be resetting for the next Banjocast. Episode 69 has been really short to the point. Really short to the point. All about Roman stuff tonight. Perhaps that's my cult filter of being a little too proactive. Perhaps. One way or the other, I'm going to be back inside of half an hour. But I have to do some casual fixes of equipment and the like, which won't take very long. So when I return, I think I'm going to be doing Blender work tonight. Although I'm tempted to do other things. And I'm always open for discussion. Some ongoing topics. Cult 101 has been hitting the top of my own charts. Can't wait to get... I got to start looking for more places. I was told where to look last night on Reddit. I'm going to be paying attention to that. So yeah, back in half an hour. I'm James PFP. Comment below. Thanks for watching.